Today we're going to go over how you calculate on the calculator certain types of statistics for a data set. So the first thing that you're going to do is key in the data. So to do that, you're going to hit the Stat Edit button, and then you're going to key in the data on L1. So you would go to your calculator, you would go to the button that says Stat, you would hit the Edit, and then you would fill in values for L1. To find information that you're looking for, once you get your values typed in for L1, then you would hit Stat. You would go over to Calc using the right arrow. You would choose the 1, so option 1, which is 1 for our stats, and hit Enter. Whenever you do that, you will go, this screen will pop up. You'll make sure that your list says L1, and then you'll go down here to calculate and hit Enter. Once you do that, you will get a screen that looks similar to this. This screen is going to give you all the information that you need about your mean and your standard deviation, your min and your max, your Q1 and your Q3. So here's an example of what you could see. So the symbols that you'll see, yesterday we talked about the mean and the standard deviation, and then your other important statistical pieces of information, and we talked about the symbols that you could see on the calculator. So for mean, you're going to see X bar. And for standard deviation, you're going to see there's actually 2. So you've got what we call sigma sub x, and you've got S sub x. So remember that this is for population, and this is for a sample. Remember, we said yesterday that our example for a population would be like if we were taking a survey of East High School and we were surveying every single student that went to East High School, and we were worried about every single student that goes to East High School's response. A sample would be like if we surveyed everybody at East High School, but we only looked at the information from just Ms. Ferguson's second period. Or if we just surveyed Ms. Ferguson's second period, and those were the only people that we surveyed. The 5-number summary is also included on your calculator, so that would be your minimum value, your Q1, your median, your Q3, and your maximum. Another important feature that you will see when you're looking at this screen is you will see N. So N is going to be your number of data points. So whenever you are using the calculator to calculate the statistics like mean and standard deviation, and then your 5-number summary for something that's a big data set, like say you had 200 numbers and you plugged all of those in your L1, and you knew that there were 200 numbers, but you look at your N and your N says that there's only 199, then that means that you've missed one of your numbers, so you need to go back and check. So sometimes it's helpful for you to check and make sure that N is equal to the number of points that you should have plugged in on the calculator. So looking at some examples, on number 1, you've got a data set that includes 4, 6, 12, 5, and 8. So in order for us to get all of this information, we can get all of that on our calculator for the most part. There's a couple of questions on there that are not going to be specifically worked out for us on the calculator, but we can easily find those. So to begin with, we're going to take our information, we're going to plug it in on the calculator. So to do that, we're going to hit the Stat button. We're going to hit Edit. And then for L1, we're going to clear out anything that might be in L1 or in L2 or any the other list that's on your calculator by hovering over the L1, L2, wherever you've got data points that you don't need, and hitting the clear button. So once you do that, then your list is clear and you can plug in the numbers that you need. So for this particular data set, you've got 4, 6, 12, 5, and 8. So I can see that there are 5 numbers there. So I'm going to hit Stat now. I'm going to go over to Calc, and I'm going to choose option 1 on this menu, which is 1-bar stats. So then I make sure that the numbers that I plugged in were in L1, and they were. So then I'm going to go to Calculate, and it's going to give me all of my 1-bar stats. So remember we said that there were 5 data points that we were plugging in, so we want to check and make sure that N says 5, and it does. So then we can get all of this information that's here based on what our calculator says, for the most part. So the mean, remember, is X bar. So for X bar, we're going to say 7. So our mean is 7. The way that they calculated the 7 is they added up all of these numbers and divided by 5, and that gave 7. All right, we can also find our maximum by scrolling through this menu and seeing the max is 12. We can get Q1, so Q1 is 4.5. We can get the median. Median is represented by MED, which is 6. We can also get the minimum, which in this case is 4. And we can get Q3. Q3 is 10. Questions we can't get the answer for from that particular function on our calculator is the mode, the range, and the interquartile range. So the mode is the number that occurs the most. And so I don't have any numbers that repeat. So for this one, it's not applicable. I don't have a mode. The range is going to be my max minus my min. So that would be 12 minus 4, which gives you 8. The interquartile range is going to be Q3 minus Q1. So for that, we've got Q3 and Q1, so we were going to do 10 minus 4.5. So when we do that, we can borrow from the 10, make it a 9, do 10 minus 5, which gives us 5, and then 9 minus 4, which gives us 5. Bring down our decimal, so 5.5. For standard deviation, you are going to have to choose, because remember, we've got 2 different things that mean standard deviation. We've got our sigma, and we've got our S. So if you notice, these numbers are not terribly far off from each other. Basically, what you're going to do whenever you're given a data set is you're going to decide if you're going to treat this as if it's a population, which means like a huge group of people, or if it's a sample, which means a smaller group of a big group. So pick one and go with it, and let that be what you typically do, unless it tells you specifically that the data set is from a population or the data set is from a sample. So I'm going to go with the sigma. So the sigma sub x is going to be equal to 2.828. So let's say that it's sigma sub x is equal to 2.828. So let's do 0.83. Let's take this 8, make it bump up the 2. So 2.83. The next question asks us, if 9 was added to the data set, how would it affect the mean? So if we're going to add 9 to the data set, we're going to go back to our calculator, we're going to go back to stat, we're going to go back to edit, and this time in L1, we are going to add 9. So we add 9 by typing 9 and then hitting enter. Then we're going to do stat. We're going to do calc. We're going to do 1 var stats. Make sure we're using L1 as our X. And then calculate. So whenever we do that, we see that our new X bar is 7.3 repeating. So the original X bar is 7. The new X bar is 7.333. So how would it affect the mean? It would increase the mean by 0.3 repeating. And remember, to represent 3 repeating, we can put that line over top of it. Number 2 gives us a data set of 55, 46, 50, 42, 46, and 4. So to begin this one, we'll go to our calculator, we'll go to stat, we'll go to edit, we'll clear out anything that's in L1 by hovering over L1 and hitting the clear button. And then we'll type in the numbers that were given. So 55, 46, 50, 42, 46, and 4. So I can check that out and see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So keep that in mind. Go to stat, go to calc, option 1, make sure your list is L1, go to calculate, and let's make sure first that we've got the right number of data points. So we should have 6, which means our n should equal 6, and it does, so then we can proceed. So the first question asks us for the mean. Mean is X bar, so in this case, the mean is 40.5. The maximum can be found by scrolling through and finding the one that says MAX, so the max is 55. Q1 is also included at 42. The median can be found from here as well, so the median is 46. The minimum is 4. And the Q3 is 50. Mode is the number that occurs the most. And so if I look through those numbers, I can see that 46 occurs 2 times. So the mode is 46. The range is going to be my maximum value minus my minimum value. So 55 minus 4 gives me 51. And the interquartile range is going to be Q3 minus Q1. And so 50 minus 42 is 8. For standard deviation, we have to decide if we're going to go with sigma or if we're going to go with S. So let's go with sigma. Let's treat this as if it was a population. Remember, unless it tells you that it's a population or a sample, you can kind of choose and decide which one you want to go with. So let's go with sigma. So if we do sigma, it's going to be 16.810. So let's do 16.81. So sigma sub x equals 16.81. The next question says, if the outlier was removed from the data set, how would it affect the mean and the median? So yesterday we talked briefly when we were talking about vocabulary about the word outlier. So outlier means extremely high or extremely low. So we're looking for, in our data set, the number that seems to be way off than the others. So if I look in the data set, I can see that the number that's way off would be the 4. So the 4 is going to be our extremely low outlier. So it's asking if it's removed. So we're going to go back to stat, we're going to go back to edit, and this time we're going to go find the 4, and we're going to delete it from the set by hitting the delete button. So once we do that, now we only have 5 values. So we're going to hit stat, we're going to hit calc, go to one var stats, make sure that your list is in L1, hit calculate, and then we will see that our numbers have changed. And so our N is now 5 because we got rid of one of those 6 original points. And it asks us how it would affect the mean and the median. So the mean, the original mean was 40.5. The new mean is going to be 47.8. So the original mean, which is your X bar, was 40.5. The new X bar is going to be 47.8. Your original median was 46. So the new median can be found by scrolling through, and it stays 46. So keep in mind that the median is based on the number of points that you have. So if you get rid of an extremely high or extremely low value, it just changes the number of points that you have. It doesn't change what could be the point in the middle. And the reason it won't change for this one is because there are 6 values, and if I were to arrange them in order, this is the original list in order, so my median would be the number that was in the middle. Because these are both the same, the median would have been 46. If I get rid of this number and I go to find the number that's in the middle, I'm going to have 5 points now, and I'm going to find the one that's the third point, because that would give us 2 on either side. And so for this, it doesn't change because we got rid of, because these 2 numbers were the same. Number 3 is about tornadoes. So the table below shows the number of tornadoes reported in the United States from 1997 to 2007. Find the mean, median, and mode for the number of tornadoes. If necessary, round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to be trying to find the X bar, the median, and the mode. So the numbers that we are going to be worried about plugging into our calculator is going to be the number of tornadoes. So this is what goes into the calculator. So we're going to go to the calculator, hit stat, we're going to hit edit, clear out anything that's in L1 by hovering over L1 and hitting the clear button. And then typing in the numbers that we have in our table in the number of tornadoes row. So once we do that, then we can hit stat, we can go over to calc, hit one var stats, make sure our list was L1, and it was, so then we can go to calculate. When we do this, we'll get all the things that we need except for the mode, because our calculator can't calculate the mode. So our X bar is going to be 1251.36 because the 3 will keep the 6. The median we can find by scrolling down. The median would be 1216. And the mode, if I look through there, I'm looking for things that repeat. And none of those values repeated. So for this one, it's not applicable. There's actually not a mode. I just caught that this says round to the nearest tenth, so really on the X bar, instead of it being 0.36, we're really worried about just that one place after the decimal. So that 6 is going to bump up that 3 to a 4. So your answer for X bar is actually going to be 1,251.4. The next few questions are a practice. So use a calculator to find the information for each of the following. So on number 1, you've got a data set that says 4,864,311,93564. So go to the calculator, hit the Stat button, hit Edit, clear out the numbers that you've got in L1 by hovering over L1 and hitting Clear. Go down and now type in the numbers that you've got in your data set. Once you get them typed in, go to Stat, go to Calc, 1 var stats, make sure your list was in L1 and it was, hit the Calculate button. So now you've got your mean first, so your mean is 4.5. The median can be found by scrolling through, so the median would be 4. The mode is the number that occurs the most, and your calculator actually is not going to tell you that. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work here. So we've got 4. We see that 4 repeats 1, 2, 3 times. So it might be helpful to do 4, and there's 3 of those. 6 repeats twice. 3 repeats twice. 1 repeats twice. And that looks like it. So the one that's got the most is going to be 4. So the mode is 4. All right, there is actually not a place on your calculator that will tell you your range, but you do get 2 important pieces of information from your calculator that will give you your range, because your range can be found by doing your max minus your min. So if we can figure out what our max and min are from our calculator, then we can get our range. So our max is 9 and our min is 1. So we're going to do 9 minus 1, which gives you 8. You can find Q1 and Q3 on the calculator. So Q1 would be 3 and Q3 would be 6. Your interquartile range is also not found on your calculator, but 2 important pieces of information that will get you your interquartile range are, which is your Q3 and your Q1. So to get your interquartile range, you do Q3 minus Q1. So you would say 6 minus 3 to get 3. For your standard deviation, you can choose to use the sigma or the S. So I'm going to go with sigma. So if we go with sigma, it's 2.36. For number 2, you've got a data set that includes 80, 34, 89, 87, 78, 90, 100, 76, 45, 87, 98, 99, and 89. To start with, go to your calculator, hit the Stat button, edit, clear out your L1, and type in your values for from your data set in L1. Once you get everything typed in, then you can hit Stat, go over to Calc, do option 1, which is 1 bar stats. Make sure your list is L1, hit Calculate. So then you can get most of the questions, or most of the answers to the questions that you are being asked. So your mean is your X bar, which is 80.92. Your median can also be found at 87. The mode is not found on the calculator, but you can find that by looking for the number that occurs most often. 80 only occurs once, 34 only occurs once, 89 it looks like occurs 2 times, 87 it looks like occurs 2 times, 78 only occurs once, 90 only occurs once, 100 only occurs once, 76 is 1 time, you got 45 1 time, 87 we've already counted, 98 is just 1 time, 99 is just 1 time, and then 89, which we've already counted. So for the mode, you actually have 2. You've got 89, and you also have 87. All right, your range cannot be found on the calculator, but your max and your min are, because your max and your min are important in calculating your range. So you would do 100 minus 34, 100 because that's your max, and 34 because that's your min. So you would do 100 minus 34. So whenever you do that, 10 minus 4 gives you 6, 9 minus 3 gives you 6. So 66 is your range. Your Q1 is found on your calculator. For this question, it's 77. Your Q3 is found on your calculator. For this question, it's 94. Your interquartile range is not found on your calculator, but your Q3 and your Q1 are useful to find your interquartile range. You're going to do Q3 minus Q1. So in this case, 94 minus 77. So 14 minus 7 is 7, 8 minus 7 is 1, so 17. For your standard deviation, let's go with sigma sub x. So if we go to the calculator and we do sigma sub x, that would be 19.205. So let's bump that 0 up because of the 5, so we'll do 19.21. All right, number 3 says, how will the mean of the following data set be affected if the outlier is not included? So in our data set, we've got 78, 67, 87, 98, 0, 87, 98, 100, and 76. So we can see that our outlier is the one that is going to be significantly high or significantly low. In this case, it would be 0 as our outlier. So in order for us to know how our that outlier affects the mean, we need to calculate the original mean and then the new mean by omitting that 0. So the original mean, the original x bar, we can get from the calculator. So we go to Stat, we go to Edit, clear out L1 by hovering over L1 and hitting the Clear button, and then typing in our data set. Also, it's important while you are calculating or typing in your data points that you type those in with accuracy, because even if you miss one of the points, it's going to completely throw off your statistics that you calculate. So once you get that, you're going to do stat. You're going to go over to calc, do option 1 for 1-bar stats. Make sure your list is L1. Hit calculate, and whenever you do that, you get an X bar of 76.7777778. So let's make it 76.78. All right, let's get our new X bar. And to get our new X bar, we are going to get rid of that 0. So we're going to go to stat. We're going to go to edit. We don't have to type in all of our numbers again. We just have to go find 0 and hit the delete button. So whenever we do that, we'll notice that our numbers move up, and then we can go to stat, go over to calc, do 1-bar stats again. List is still L1, hit the calculate button, and we get X bar to be 86.375. So let's make it 86.38 because of the 5. So we can tell that by eliminating that 0 from our data set, that our mean increased by roughly 10 points. So if you were to think about this as being like your grades in the class, this is a good indicator here that if you are missing an assignment and you get a 0 for that assignment, look at how much it affected the grade. So think about this in terms of the letter grades that you get now. A 76 would be a C, whereas an 86 would be a B. And that happened all because of that one outlier that was a 0. So whenever we hound you about making sure that you get your assignments turned in, that's why. Because we want to see you jump 10 points by eliminating those outliers. To kind of go in the other direction, so if we were considering these to be grades for one student, let's say that another student has grades like this. So say you've got 2 zeros, you've got a 15, you got a 26, and then you've got a 98. So if we go to our calculator, and you're not going to have this on your paper, but just follow along with me on this one. So if we go to our calculator, we do edit, we clear out our L1, and then we type these in. We've got 0, 0, 15, 26, and 98. So whenever we do that, we hit stat, we go over to calc, we do 1-bar stats. L1, calculate. Notice that that average is a 27.8. Now if we think about this, there is an outlier in this particular set, and it's not 0. The outlier in this case is actually the 98. So what's happening is this 98 is helping to bring up the average or the mean. So sometimes your outlier is not necessarily going to be what the lowest grade is or what the lowest number is. Sometimes it could be the highest number, depending on where your other numbers are. So if we look at 98, 98 is a good bit away from even the next highest number. So 98 in this case would be our outlier. If we were to eliminate 98, keep in mind that that X bar for that data set we were just looking at was 27.8. So now if we eliminate that 98 and we go back and do our 1-bar stats, we'll see that by eliminating the 98, our X bar or our mean has now gone down to 10.25. So that's a significant jump by eliminating that high number. Number 4 says which measure will be affected the most if the outlier is not included, the mean or the median. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the original mean and the original median by plugging the original data set into the calculator. And then we're going to get the new mean and the new median by eliminating our outlier. So if we look in our list, it appears that our outlier is going to be this 0. We're going to keep the 0 for right now. We'll get rid of it once we get our X bar and our original median. So we'll go to Stat, we'll go to Edit, we'll clear out the stuff that's in L1, and then we'll type in the points that we're given. So once we type those in, we go to Stat, we go to Calc, 1 bar stats, L1, calculate, and we get our original X bar to be 81.75. We can scroll through and get our original median to be 87.5. So now we are going to go to our calculator, go to Stat, go to Edit, and we are going to eliminate what we said was our outlier, which in this case would be 0. So we find the 0, and we hit Delete. So now we do Stat, we go over to Calc, we do 1 bar stats, L1 is our list, go to Calculate, and when we do that, we get our new X bar at 89.18 and our new median to be at 90. So we want to compare and see which one increased the most by excluding that outlier. So if I look at the original median, or the original, X bar and the new X bar, that's almost an 8-point jump. And if I look at the original median and the new median, that's only about a 2.5-point jump. So the mean is going to be the most affected by the outlier in this case.